My name is Abigail Goodman and I work for the South East NRM Board, and I was one of the people who helped coordinate the Aboriginal Lands Trust bus tour out to Poocher Swamp and Mundulla Swamp. The interest in the tour was instigated by Trevor Thomas, who has been a passionate tree lover in the district for many years. He had shown me a lot of the trees around the district, and so many of them are worthy of sharing that we decided that it would be a good topic for the bus tour. We stopped here today beside this swamp on the Canawigga Road because this is a site where the trees had been impacted by Mundulla yellows. Their leaves were turning yellow, they were showing veination, and it was ultimately leading to the death of a number of those trees. So the Kurong Tatiara Local Action Planning Group partnered with Nick Schultz from Federation University to look into this cause of death. There are a few hypotheses around whether it was biotic or pathogens, but people didn't really know what was going on. But their studies have seemed to indicate that it's an iron and manganese deficiency. They trialled some bullets that help with that manganese and iron deficiency, and I'm not sure, it was a number of years ago that those bullets were put in. You can see them in the trunk of those trees, and within 6 months those trees had turned from yellow back into a healthy green, but they're not really sure how long they'll remain effective because the trees do seem to be turning again, but ultimately it's supporting that hypothesis that the crushed limestone that's used as road base is interfering with the pH of the soil that the trees are growing in, and that makes that iron and manganese unavailable for the trees. We went to Poocher Swamp and we had a cultural significance session there with some of the First Nations people. Rod Bird from Victoria, who spent a lifetime studying trees, spent some time showing us how you can take some measurements to perhaps come up with an indication of the age of some of our paddock trees. Trevor also spoke to us at Poocher about how trees there had been used for sleepers in the past, the impact of ring barking on the trees.
This area here is filled by the Tatiara Creek. And it flows in from Victoria. There's a big reservoir at Serviceton. Used to pump water for the steam trains up to Serviceton. Then it flows in through Bordertown and then into this Poocher Swamp. When we had plenty of rain, the runaway hole here would fill up. That one over there used to become unplugged, and so the water would go down to the aquifer. Then they started giving licence to irrigators, and so the water levels went down.
In the early days, the Tatiara was made up of stations. There was a Canawigga station, a Lang station, Wirriga station, and even Pine Hill station. But those other three stations were the earlier stations, and this was part of the Canawigga run. We went right through from the border to here. Now there was two shearing sheds. There was one near the Tatiara Creek, near the bakery there, and there was and then when Bordertown was surveyed as Bordertown, they had to clear out and leave the town and build another shed out here. So the shed here was probably built in the 1850s, and this shearing tree was just at the base of the shearing shed. The shearing shed was over there, as you can see the picture there. Now the shearers in their spare time, they used to throw their shears, if they're broken shears, up here, and there's a broken shear you see like darts. They used to throw them up there, and that tree's probably grown that much in diameter, because you can see it's grown over that shear just about. These photographs here of the runaway hole, you can have a look at these, were taken by my grandfather in 1947. You can have it pass that around. And this is one of the biggest floods of all time in this district.
So that's this tree?
1947, that's that tree, yeah.
Yeah, that's right, standing from here.
And now we've had a lot of floods since then, but 47 was a very, very wet year. And as you can see, there's a lot of water going down the hole. And the biggest flood was 1889 here, and the next one was 1947. I don't think there's been one quite as big as that since.
This is the story at this site, which is, I've never seen this before. And
Yeah.
What is the cause and how's it happening? And yeah.
Must be a
Just a fantastic
big
point of
insect.
interest that we had to share.
Absolutely.
Well, I reckon it's about 300 years old.
That's what I reckon. Yeah, exactly.
It's not an ancient tree, but it's...
I mean, hell, it could have been caused by an insect that's now.
Well, it could have been, but my guess is genetic mutation.
So So I guess another theory that I've heard, Ken McPhee, who was a border town local, his theory was that it was, 5 or 6 saplings growing close together, and Indigenous people might have used it as shade for young ones. So if you planted the tops together, you could go off for a number of hours and the shade would still shade your baby or whatever you left underneath. And we also, at a number of the stops, had historic images taken 100 years ago that were able to match up with those trees still standing in the landscape today, to see what 100 years of change looked like. Why dead one way and not the other?
Yeah. Difference.
Well, that's a good question.
Like it's almost like there's a line.
Yeah.
It's that's a very good question.
After lunch we went to Mundulla Swamp, and we were lucky to have Dee Provis, who is a Mundulla local, take us down to Jimmy Waterhole and share her childhood experiences growing up in the area and what the swamp used to be like when she was a kid.
The runaway hole is right over that way. It's too far for us to go today, unfortunately. So I would have been about 8. We heard in the town the noise of the runaway hole going. So it appears there's sort of a bit of a hill over there, and at the base of it is where the hole for the runaway hole is. When the runaway hole goes, all of the debris and everything gets caught up, and the mud and everything, and eventually plugs it back up again. We were over there and Dad had the horse and cart pulled up, and that day I think we took home 3 wheat bags full of yabbies, raking them up and shoveling them into the bags, because they were all being drawn out of everywhere, right? But I also remember holding my brother's hand because I was really frightened, because you could see these runnels, these rivulets of mud, liquid mud, just going down into the runaway hole. And if he'd slipped in one of those, or I had, we would have been gone forever.
It was a fabulous day. The weather really turned it on, and I think everyone really enjoyed the opportunity to celebrate the magnificent trees that we still have in our landscape today.